Welcome back to HBCU Football with me and Michael. You know, it's crazy because last week I did not expect us to get that many views and a lot of subscribers from that. But this is what happens when you reach out to the Black community.
Right.
Michael, we keep saying that SWAC football is where it's at. I always say this. I hate that they don't get the media attention that these Power Five schools get, but uh the SWAC got some good games. They had some good games going on this weekend. I want to start with Grambling versus Langston because we've been talking about Grambling all offseason. Can they really live up to what they used to be? And they came out the gate strong, in a 55-7 win against Langston. And I was at the game. When
Yeah.
I tell you the defense looked incredible, the offense looked incredible, everything was on point. I did not know that Grambling had a transfer quarterback from Southern University,
Yeah.
and he was lights out.
What about
He
the
went
guy?
25, 20 for 20, 20 for 25, 203 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. Lit up the scoreboard.
Yeah.
Um, Backup Ashton Fry went 6 for 8,
hmm
44 yards, 1 touchdown. Michael, let's just talk about the quarterbacks real quick. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on that?
Honestly, it's kind of what we talked about last episode, and what we also texted about in the group chat. Where where is Grambling as far as like the quarterback wise? Who is the starting quarterback's going to be? Uh, Whoever that starting quarterback's going to be, are they going to be capable, or do they have the starting quarterback IQ to lead this offense? And what we saw in the Shreveport Classic game, Deuce, is that both quarterbacks are capable of doing it
Yeah,
without a doubt.
and I
But
mean, if it look it the most, you always want to make sure you have a good starting quarterback and a good backup quarterback. And I don't care that this was just Langston, who was a smaller school. Both quarterbacks prove that they can get the job done and they know how to control and command that offense. And that's what we're looking for. We said that Grambling needs that leader who can step up, who can command, who can control, who can make the winning plays and what they need to do to win.
right,
Both those quarterbacks did it, regardless of how many snaps, who got more snaps. Both those quarterbacks look comfortable, and I'm kind of glad that Mickey Joseph did not rule the starter until the day of the game
right,
because it didn't. It looked like Ashton, what's his name? Yeah, Ashton Fry. It looked like he had all the confidence in the bag,
mhm,
despite being the quarterback too. And this looks like that. Okay, if this quarterback gets hurt, our backup quarterback can come in
yeah,
and command this offense. So Grambling got to Ohio State, and look, we talked about that. We know, like, hey, they're not gonna win this game.
no, no,
But after that, you got 2 games, you got 2 non-conference games, and then you go into Prairie View.
yep,
Hey, Grambling could possibly go into this break, go into conference play 3-1. That's all I'm just gonna say.
that that's what I'm saying. That's really going to determine how Grambling is going as far direction wise. If Grambling can win 3 out of these 4 games, like I said, like we all know they're going to lose to Ohio State. I mean, but you would like to see them be a little competitive, regardless of where Ohio State is ranked. You still want to see your team be competitive and not just
Mhm.
be a tossing bag and just be tossed around, because that's not what Grambling is. I don't care. You can look at these guys. Grambling has a physicality to play with. They might not be able to keep up with Ohio State, but they do have physicality and the speed
And
and to
I
match.
like, I love that you mentioned the physicality because the
Yeah,
defense looked like they didn't even take a step back. They looked like they just took a step forward. They look incredible. You
that's
know, they held Langston to negative 32 yards on the ground. Langston was relying on that pass offense to,
mhm,
move the ball. And even then, they still couldn't score. They didn't
mhm.
score. Michael, you remember I told you they didn't score a touchdown until the
Yeah,
fourth quarter.
the full
And
quarter, and that's what
so
hold them, because like I said, regardless of, I can care less if it was Prairie View. I can care less if it was Texas A&M Commerce. I can care less if it was anybody. The point is the defense never really was the problem, but it's good to see that the defense upgraded, and it's good to also see, and a guy I can't think of his name, but he was commentating the game. He also said that it's good to see that Grambling attacked the transfer portal, because you have to think about that too. The defense was stacked in the transfer portal. And, Mickey Joseph at first, when he first came, he was more relying on high school players and transfers. He switched the script a little bit. Now he was leaning more towards transfers in high school. Sometimes that's what you have to do. That's what Jackson State is. That's what Jackson State's been doing. That's what Southern has been doing. They've been leaning more towards their transfers than high school. Not saying the high school players are not good, but at the same time, you know how it is. In college, it's more about transfers. And
The transfers have to experience more experience than what these high schoolers do.
that's
And
why.
look, Grambling is great because Grambling retained a lot of their players. They redshirted a lot of these freshmen, so the team chemistry is already like there. If you don't have to, you don't have a whole new locker room because we see this a lot in college football where players will leave. A lot of players will leave, and you're bringing a whole new squad.
Exactly.
This is not the case for Grambling, and I think the chemistry is what's going to help them win and what's going to help them win these games.
For sure. And that's and you know, I'm gonna leave it with this. Remember the last episode we talked about, and this game is going to determine how Grambling comes out in the first half and how Grambling comes out in the second half. And Deuce, they did exactly what we talked about, coming out with a field of fire, with a hungry mentality. And Deuce, the defense was getting turnovers, right? Defense was getting sacks. Defense was getting Langston off the field. There were times Langston were going 3 and out majority of the game at times. So if Grambling can continue to play like they played against Langston, we could actually be seeing the Grambling that we're all used to, right? We could also be seeing Grambling become a threat in the SWAC, I think SWAC West Division. And we can also see possibly, maybe, but it's too early to call, but we can also see Grambling be a potential face in the SWAC championship. It's down. And then not only that, this is also good because Grambling's going to play Jackson State in Las Vegas. So if Grambling can continue to play like this, we can be seeing a real good game, Deuce, over there in Las Vegas. But I'm actually glad that the offense brought the firepower, they brought the explosiveness, and the quarterbacks, they did their jobs. It, like I said, if they can continue, if both sides can continue to play like they did against Langston, Grambling is going to be a problem.
Yeah, and look, it's just not even just the quarterbacks. I mean, the receivers look cold, running backs look nice. The running backs, all 5 of the running backs that got rushing attacks on the game, they looked incredible. Despite how many yards they got, they looked like they knew what they were doing. They didn't look clues. They were able to move the ball. Now, yes, some other running backs got more reps than these other running backs, but even the running backs that got like the least amount of reps, they looked confident in what they were doing, and that is what we wanted to see.
And that's all with the running back coach. Wherever the running back coach is, shout out to him because he got those guys. You can tell, Deuce, it wasn't just one running back. It wasn't just 2. It was all 5 of them. They all ran the ball with physicality. They all ran the ball with explosiveness. They all ran the ball with a good field vision to run through the gaps. And I'm also saying this, Deuce. Every single running back had the juking ability to make players miss. That's one of the things that we talked about, Deuce. Can this offense, can the receivers and the running backs be more elite to make players miss, make aggressive tackles? Also, the receivers, they did their thing. They did their thing over there in Shreveport, Deuce.
Yes.
Game. The offense was there. The offense was there. And I was asking myself in the game, where's this ball been at? Where has this all been at? And now I'm actually glad to see this back. And I'm really hoping that Mickey Joseph can keep these guys hungry like they were in that Shreveport game. And if they continue to do that, they gonna probably be pair of you. Okay? They probably gonna end up being Jackson State and Las Vegas because I know that's early, but I'm just saying this now. If Grambling can stay hungry like they did, Grambling gonna be a problem. And I'm gonna leave it at that. And the band is gonna be a problem because I watched the band, dudes. I seen they cooked over there. Y'all cooked over there, and because that's another thing. It ain't just a football team that y'all need to understand. If you don't know nothing about Grambling, it's not just a football team. You need to see. You need to see the band. It's all too concert kind of game that you need to be at. And I'm telling you, that's one thing. If you don't know nothing about Grambling, do your research. Because I'm telling you this not. It's the football team and it's the band that will make you get out your seat and make you excited. And Deuce, I'm going to say this, bro. Make sure y'all cook over there at Ohio State. Make sure y'all let those people know what Grambling is all about. Please.
We already prepared to do that.
Please
We
do
coming in with a strict mindset. We're not taking no days off. It's been hard work over here. But I will say this: one player that I will want y'all to, before we switch to this next football game, one player I want y'all to really look out is for Tyson George. 3 receptions, 63 yards, 1 touchdown. Looked incredible. I feel
that.
like yes, he could have gotten more targets, but in the targets he did get, he made best of it, And I think I just want Grambling to be back to that 2016, 2017 team. And yes, maybe it is too early to just make a complete name for them. But all offseason, we were saying Grambling has to come out the gate strong. They can't look like they did last year. They can't look clueless.
Right.
Despite how small this school Langston was, the amount of players they had, Grambling looked like they knew what they were doing.
They were focused and they were poised.
Multiple clutch turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
They poised to win, just poised to win.
For sure.
But jumping into our next game, JSU versus Hampton. We talked about Jackson State's defense. We said that they're a force to be reckoned with. They caused four. They caused 4 turnovers on that Hampton defense offense. And I was watching that before we loaded the buses to go to the Shreveport Classic, and the whole time I was just like, "Wow, there's no way that this defense is just that good." Like to sit there and cause four forced fumbles, incredible. Michael, just what's your thought on that?
Like I said, and like I said in the previous episode, when we first started doing this, I told you Jackson State was going to be a problem, a force to be reckoned with, regardless of where they play. They gonna bring the fire to you, and it's up to you on how you respond. And Hampton was hanging with Jackson State, and you gotta give Hampton credit because they actually, this game could have been a lot worse.
Yes.
Because Jackson State, let's be honest, Jackson State has a little bit more, talent and a little bit more.
And when you speak of that, I feel like yes, the quarterback play could have been better, but the quarterback play could have been better. But what do you expect when one, your defense is clicking, and two, your running back, Ahmad Miller, 10 carries, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. That is incredible. That is incredible. And honestly, right now he's looking like, in my opinion, one of the best running backs in the SWAC right now, just by how efficient he was able to run the ball. He was averaging 17 yards per carry.
Yep.
We don't see that. We always see like, okay, we get these like 3 to 5 yards per carry. 17 yards per carry is incredible.
Yep.
Incredible. Like that's just stuff that Ashton Genty, in my opinion, was doing over there in the Mountain West Conference and a G5 school or a P4 school, whatever you want to classify Boise State last year. What Jackson State is doing on the offensive side of the ball and the running attack and on the defensive side of the ball, it's incredible. And we spoke about how they brought back their SWAC player of the year with their quarterback. Yes, he could have been better, but I feel like maybe he didn't need to do as much when you had the running game clicking and you had the defense clicking. I still think that he's the best quarterback in the SWAC, in my opinion. He was a SWAC player of the year for a reason last year. You brought him back. Jackson State, I still think is going to be a force to be reckoned with come, conference play.
Yep, they are. They are.
And I think their first real matchup is going to be against Southern in a few weeks.
Yeah, and they are. And, and like I said, dudes, Jackson State, dominant defense, an early touchdown by Hampton, Jackson State defense locked in and adapted a bend. I wrote it down. Bend, don't break. I'm going to say it again. Bend, don't break. That's the mentality that they gave. Preventing big plays from the remainder of the game, dudes. Hampton wasn't able to do nothing against the Jackson State. Jackson State defensive line was like coming after their quarterback. And it's just like, you have to understand that transfers, because, Jackson State has a lot of big transfers, and you saw that in that game against Hampton. And it not even just the big school transfers, but also, high school prospects, because there were some freshmen in this game that played their tail off. That's what I'm saying. Jackson State has the coaching staff, have the team. Jackson State is going to be a problem. And regardless, because I think they play Southern Miss at some point.
Yeah, they play them next week, I believe.
Yeah, they're going to be a problem. And, I hate to say this, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson State end up being Southern Miss. I'm just saying. Jackson State has the capability of being Southern Miss. I'm just going to call it like that. And, I just think when you look at Jackson State, Deuce, they have a lot of firepower.
And they only got better. They just built off the success they had last year.
I'm saying they're constantly building. And that's why I say all the time, when a player leaves, it's up to the organization. It's up to the athletic director. It's up to the head coach to continue to build whatever position, that you can get a high-powered transfer or high school player to develop and continue to make your team where they are now. Because, like I say, it all started with Deion Sanders. Brought in all them big school transfers and then high schoolers. And then, they became a force. Back-to-back seasons, they became a force. Now they got a new head coach. Still a force. That's what I'm saying. Jackson State is going to be a problem. And I'm actually excited to see this Jackson State Grambling game. If Grambling continue to play like this, we could have a low scoring.
I think this in general, the SWAC is just going to be a problem. Because jumping into this ASU UAB game, Michael, we thought ASU was finna win. They had multiple chances, and I'm gonna keep saying this. The only reason I think they lost is because the refs bailed them out a few times with with costly flags.
Yeah.
ASU wide receiver Jalen Jones, 6 receptions, 174 yards, 1 touchdown.
Yep.
An offensive factor. Andrew Body, he looks like a top quarterback in the SWAC right now. 18 for 24, 4 touchdowns, 119 rushing yards, and 1 TD on the ground. We just talked about, Jackson State's quarterback. Yep. But ASU I believe they're building something special in this program right now. The fact that you can go, a lot of people always want to rule out these, they always want to rule out how these smaller schools are going to perform against these bigger schools. There's no doubt in mind that UAB is a bigger school than Jackson State. ASU. They get more funding, they get all this. But the fact that ASU was able to compete and put up a game with them, and a lot of people would debate with you who should have really won that game, that goes to show a lot.
Yep, that's what I'm talking about. And, that's what really kind of irritates me about these big schools. I can care less if you're a Conference USA. I can care less if you're a Sun Belt Conference. You never sleep on an HBCU team. You never do that. I don't care who you play.
I always say this. HBCU teams, they play with heart. They don't play to the last whistle.
And that's the problem. A lot of these, and I know a lot of coaches, say, don't sleep on them. But honestly, in these players' head, they do that. They're going to do that. Also, if you tell them not to, they're going to do that. And this Alabama State game in UAB, that determines that. At halftime, Alabama quarterback Andrew Body led the Hornets to a 21 Deuce to 17 game at halftime. Okay. And then ending the second quarter with a 31-yard touchdown pass, Deuce. Alabama State just proved that not only are we a force to be reckoned with in this game, but we're going to be a force to be reckoned with in the SWAC. When the SWAC play starts, that's why, and I think I said this on last previous episode, Alabama State is going to be a rising team that no one expects to see, because Alabama State has that offense, and you just seen that in that game against UAB. And of course, the officials are going to play a factor in that, because it's the officials. They do that. It is what it is at the end of the day. But you got to give credit to Alabama State, because they earned their respect. They gained their respect from UAB, even when UAB didn't respect them. They played with heart. They played with fire. This game, Deuce, they really could have.
I see the improvement in that Alabama State, because last year, they did not look the best, whether you want to like it or not. In my opinion, they didn't look the best. I think last year they could have been way better. And I think this year, a lot of teams in the SWAC said, okay, we know we need to fix. We know we need to address. We know who we need to address in the transfer portal. Just all that. They did that, and these teams in the SWAC are trying to make a name for themselves.
Mhm.
Alcorn, and I know I didn't watch too much of the game, but it was a close game. Unfortunately, Alcorn lost, but it was the score. It may have been 20-10, but the game was closer than you think. The
Right.
game was closer than you think.
But see, Northwestern, they really have fallen off a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They got a new head coach. I didn't even know. I forgot all about they even got a new head coach. But you know, Grambling used to beat Northwestern, and it was just really just where was Northwestern at, and Northwestern they still struggled a little bit, but you can kind of there's some improvement there under that new head coach that they have. Alcorn really could have won this game because it was close. It was close throughout the game, but I think there were a few moments where they kind of bit on things. It was penalties, or if it wasn't penalties, it was certain plays that kind of drew them back, and it was kind of hard to regain that feel. And that's just how it is in games. But you kind of got to give credit to Alcorn. They made the game a competitive game, and it wasn't a blowout game. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what you look at as far as a SWAC team or HBCU team.
And we keep saying this. I really do think the SWAC is going to be competitive this year. Every team I think every team just got better.
Yep.
But the last game I want to talk about is just FAMU Hampton game. Sadly, or FAMU Howard game. Let me say that correct. Yeah, this FAMU Howard game. FAMU, unfortunately, they lost by 1 point, and that's just going to raise a lot of concerns and questions. But I'm gonna say this: it's one game.
Yeah.
There's a you got so many more games this season. FAMU, I still believe is the top team in the SWAC. It's a bum that they lost. It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season plays out because yes, they did look inconsistent when they lost this game.
Right.
And inconsistencies always raise a bunch of question marks. But we did say this on our other podcast with Adam and Benji. It's week one. Week one is when you really get to see your team play against somebody for the first time. This isn't like the NFL where you got a preseason to see how these players play. Week
Right.
one is when your players get their first reps, and it's just maybe this FAMU team just was caught off guard by how good Howard was.
Right.
But Michael, you just got any thoughts and opinions?
Yeah. I'm actually gonna touch base on what you just said about week one. Week one, in reality, you can either struggle or you can improve one way or another. And it's kind of like what we were talking about with Grambling. It's kind of like what we were talking about with Jackson State. It's kind of like what we were talking about with Alabama State. It's just really determines, where your team is at. Struggles, they happen. It's part of the game. In week one, you normally see that. Really doesn't matter in the game, but I'm just saying, as far as week one in reality, you see that regardless of what team it is. And in that game, struggles happen. The struggle was real in that game. But at the same time, you got to give credit to both defenses. It came down. I think it came down to a touchdown or something like that. I didn't really get a chance to watch the game fully, but that's something that I'm actually going to do when I get off this. But you can definitely tell the defense played a factor in this game. And I think, what people need to understand is that the SWAC versus the MEAC is not MEAC, but the SWAC versus, any team, if it's the MEAC, I think Howard's in the MEAC conference, right?
I gotta look. It's a lot of HBCU football teams that I've really started to I really started to look into, and the more you look into it, it's more conferences than just the SWAC and the MEAC. So
Yeah, but you can kind of tell that regardless of what HBCU it is, an HBCU team will always look either competitive or not competitive. And in the Florida A&M game and the Howard game, you saw the defensive physicality. You saw offensive struggles on both sides. I think I'm just on that's just what the game is according to the score, because this game came to 10-9. That that was a real close game, and I really hate that I could not get that game on SWAC TV. But that's just basically telling you that Florida A&M, if they don't fix the struggles offensively on what they had, it's going to be a long season for them. And that goes for Howard too. If Howard don't pick up on the struggles that they had offensively, there's nothing wrong with their defense. Their defense did their jobs today. Both defenses did. And that's just coming off the score. I might be wrong. It could be the other way around. But I'm just saying, from my personal experience and what I'm reading right now, both offenses need to work on, watch some film, just look at the struggles that they had. And I feel like once they do that, then, because Florida A&M, don't get me wrong, I'm not sleeping on Florida A&M regardless of what happened in this game. I'm not sleeping on Howard regardless of what happened in this game. I'm just saying that it's up to the coaching staff. And I've been saying this all day, and I said this on with Benji and Adam, that it's up to the coaching staff to make adjustments. Because if you're not capable of making adjustments, then you're putting the team in jeopardy. So it's just really going to determine, where is Florida A&M and Howard throughout the rest of this season.
Yeah, but just closing out our SWAC football, HBCU football, and as the weeks go on, we will start to cover more games. We just been busy this weekend, but we will start to cover more games. We really do appreciate the support that y'all have had on our Instagram. Our Instagram and our YouTube videos. Actually,
right.
We got more views than we expected, and that's thanks to y'all. Only y'all are the reason that the people that watch are the reason that we continue to do this, and motivates me and Michael. Just to keep recording.
And then we have people that want us on other podcasts. I think, Deuce, you told me that there were some guys at Grambling that wanted me and you on that on a pod with. So the connection is growing because, like I said, a lot of podcasters don't talk about HBCUs, and the fact that we are seeing two guys like me and you doing this is adding to the field of fire. So, like Deuce said, we appreciate the support that y'all been giving us, and please make sure you keep spreading this because
Yeah, and I mean the goal isn't just to even talk about HBCU football; it's to talk about HBCUs in general because I always believe that they should be getting more light to them and getting more light and exposure than they should be. Right. And that's the goal. This is to help these HBCUs get more exposure.
Exactly. And, a lot of people sleep on HBCUs, but, HBCUs were popular back then, and they should be popular now because there's nothing changing. The culture has changed, no doubt. But, I think what people need to understand is that HBCUs, they're no different from the big school games. The band might be a little more exciting. I can't speak for every band, but I just know for a fact that HBCU spirit is there. You just have to be there to experience it. You have to be there to witness it. That's why I said, Deuce, when y'all go to Ohio State, they will feel that because a lot of schools that Grambling band played at, people have enjoyed that because they don't know how much of the culture about the band and about the team until they witness it. So that's why we say all the time that HBCUs in general need the spotlight too. They need the respect too, because it's competitive even on this side. There's no difference.
And just like before I close out, I'm gonna keep doing this and keep spreading awareness to HBCUs. And maybe one day, just hopefully one day, we can get on a bigger platform like ESPN, we can get on these bigger platforms and spread the word about these HBCUs because it's more to them than what the overall media likes to picture how these HBCUs are. There's so much good in these HBCUs, and I keep telling you this, Michael. HBCU football is where it's at. It's competitive, and it's just a bum that they don't get as much spotlight as they should be. But
it's us to make sure that there. Because now, like you said, the views are going up because people are seeing that they're learning more about HBCUs as they go along. And some people might know a little more about HBCUs, but there are some people who don't. and the views are showing the support that we have for HBCUs. We're not showing favoritism here. We're not doing this for popularity. We're
You know,
doing it.
it's crazy because I literally go to Grambling State, but I speak positive on every HBCU,
Mm-hmm.
whether I like it or not. And you know, I always joke about Grambling Southern, this how I hate Southern, but when it comes down to it, aside from football, you gotta respect your HBCUs and what the legacy that each school has built, because each school has both all each and every HBCU has each done something iconic, whether it be, you know, producing these high named alumni or these high named football teams, basketball teams, these
Yeah.
bands. It's more. So that's just the goal. But
Yeah.
I'm wrapping this up. This will be posted on YouTube either today or tomorrow. Make sure y'all like and subscribe. The goal is to get this video to 500 views. We were able to clip 200 last video. This one is the goal to eclipse 500. But as
Yeah.
always, I say this: make sure y'all stay safe and make sure y'all like, comment, and y'all subscribe on all of our content. And thank y'all for watching this brief little HBCU segment.